Welcome to the Daily Items Winter Sports Podcast, a weekly look at what's happening with the Susquehanna Valley's high school and college teams. From Bucknell and Susquehanna University men's and women's basketball to all the high school hoops, wrestling, swimming, and more, the Daily Items Sports Team has the latest on the players, coaches, and teams to watch. Now, here's your host, Daily Items Sports Editor, Kurt Ritzman.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Item Winter Sports Podcast. I'm Kurt and I'm happy to once again be joined by Chris Nagy to start off.
3 straight weeks that I've been the lead. It has to be postseason wrestling.
Yes, we're halfway through the individual playoffs. I'm calling them playoffs.
Well, yes, tournaments, but
districts are behind us. Regionals start Friday. Start with 2A. What stuck out to you from District 4?
Well, we got 35 kids through. 32 kids through, which was kind of expected. That's half of what we had there. The one thing that really stuck through me was Southern once again overperforming. Took 14, now have 11.
Wow.
The usual run of champions and everything else and that. But the one that everybody talks about, the Garcias and stuff like that, but the one that really surprised me was Patrick Edmondson, and I led with him in the story. And Patrick is just he's a student of the game. He's like a quarterback who wrestles. And he waited for an opportunity in that, and he'll talk about it right now. I had a chance to talk to Patrick about it. And this is what he says about how he won his match and how he was waiting for the right time.
How does it feel to win your first district title?
Oh, great. There was thoughts that it might never happen in that match, but I just kept pushing it away. Got the job done.
What was your mindset in the last 30 seconds of regulation?
I knew I was down by 2. I felt him, starting to ease up. I was able to get him in a bad position and get that 2 points.
What was your mindset going into overtime? Did you feel like it was yours then?
I felt him really ease up, and I knew I could get the job done. And then when he threw me going out of bounds, I knew that was a last-ditch effort, and I was able to get in there and get that little shot by for 2.
Outside of Southern getting 11 through, what else jumped out? Midwest had a good day, right?
Yeah, and it could have been a whole lot better. You think about the I had a joke with Dale Frankie, the head coach at Midwest, that they actually run over a bus of a truck of black cats on the way there. We had Wyatt Bassett, who has progressed better now. He's feeling better, which is great. He had what was being described as a virus on the brain. Oof. He could not get his temperature down or anything else. He was a late scratch. And so there's 20, 25 team points gone right out the window. A regional qualifier. Wyatt would have made it. And then you had Joe Rodriguez falling into a chair Friday night and hurting his ankle. You had Owen Zekman getting dumped on his head. And then Cameron Klein injuring his shoulder and not being able to wrestle Gavin Garcia for the second straight week. So to finish third was amazing for Midwest because, it was amazing. Kyler Crawford from Milton is another great story. And let's not forget about Milton sending 3. That was more than anybody really expected. And, we're going to see a good smattering of people, different schools and that making it through. It was a very good tournament. But it was, I think because of Southern's domination, it was a little mundane at times because it would be like, but the one thing I really am excited about talking about is 220 at AAA.
Okay, so let's talk AAA districts. 18 kids from Selinsgrove and Chickalimmy. You know it better than me, but I was happy. That was more than I thought we might get through.
Yeah, and it was very. The Schick kids overperformed, and the bottom end of Selinsgrove. You got to remember, Selinsgrove only took 12 kids out to Clearfield,
and got 10 of them through.
Got 10 through.
Wow,
and it's amazing. So now they get into this step, and it's not as much as a grinder as some of the other AAAs are. It's like you're not going down like when I was in high school and wrestled in Shamokin. Nobody ever wanted to win districts because you'd ended up going to the Valley of Death. And that would mean you're going down to Bethlehem Liberty to die, to go 0-2 and it would be over. And that's why we called it the Valley of Death. The region that 9 and 4 are in is not as, you have 6, and it's not as grinding as other regions could be. So I do see we're getting about, but once again, I'm excited about 220 because it seems like Adam Young of Shikellamy is shortening the gap with Nate Schoen. And does this mean that I think only for the 4th time in Valley history could we have Valley versus Valley in a state final?
State final.
In a state, I'm going all the way out. I'm going all the way out because Young is wrestling great right now.
Okay.
And the only people that he'd have to worry about is 2 are going to be killing each other in AA. That's Dakota Snyder and the kid from Montorville, and then Nate Schoen. That's the only real competition that these 4 have, are each other. Now you have 2 here and 2 here. And for Young to have a 2-1 lead going into the 3rd period against Nate Schoen has to do wonders for him, and it has to do wonders for Schoen too, because he's like, Nate's probably thinking right now, there's no way I want that gap that tight.
I would point out quick that Schoen outscored him 10-1 in the 3rd period, something like that.
Yeah, because I think he got mad. But for 4 minutes, he hung with him.
Sure.
And he had not hung with him for 4 minutes before. Okay. So, I mean, it's mental. The mental game is so important when it comes to wrestling because you keep facing him over and over and over and over and over. And, I mean, I was talking to a couple people. The Danville coaches are big on this, where they think that from year to year, like with district after sectionals and districts, we should be switching regions so everybody's not seeing each other 3-4 times. But I think that's what makes this sport great, because you could beat somebody sectionals, beat somebody at districts, and then blood round of you both lost once. The blood round of regionals you're facing, and then you finally beat him, and you send him to the baseball field while you're going to Hershey. That's what makes this sport so great. Sorry.
Well said. And we've got plenty of wrestling coverage coming up in Thursdays, Fridays, daily items, plus then the coverage of the actual events next week leading up to states, so make sure to check those out. I'm going to say goodbye to Chris, let him rest up a little before heading to Williamsport on Friday, and we're going to welcome in Todd to talk a little basketball. All right, now I'm happy to welcome in Todd Hummel, start with boys basketball. District playoffs are well underway. What's stuck out to you so far is most of the classifications are in their finals.
Yeah, still got us 2 semifinals tonight. Danville and Danville and Jersey Shore girls, and Danville and Mifflinburg boys over at Shikellamy. EJ and Loyal Sock, I think, play tonight yet.
Yep.
For the local teams, Loyal Sock boys and Central boys are still going to play. Sounds like, if I had to guess, that they might be playing those games. Sounds like they're talking about Saturday for some of those finals. Okay. So. Be interesting to see where they go. Last night, not surprised Wellsboro won, but surprised at the way Wellsboro really handled Mount Carmel to get to the grab the first berth in the 3A finals. Was up at Montgomery for that game, and Wellsboro's been real good. I think it's their 5th or 6th straight trip to the semifinals. Been in the finals 3 of the last 4 years. When these Danville kids were freshmen, that's who the Danville kids beat in the AA final that year. They beat Southern in Julian's freshman year, I believe it was. And this is just it's a real strong program, and they're real long. They're probably had 3 kids about 6'5", not real wide, but real long. Brandon Tuttle is a 1,000 rebound guy who had 23 and 13 last night. And, Loyal Sock is so good. It's going to be so tough for them to probably beat Loyal Sock. I'm assuming Loyal Sock beats Central tonight. So they've beaten them twice during the season, barring, that'd be a pretty big upset. But I think an interesting game will be this 3rd place game, because I think Mount Carmel and Central Columbia match up real well. 2 teams that are high-scoring teams. I think that's going to be a fun one. And let's see, Danville Mifflinburg tonight. We're doing this on a Wednesday. Mifflinburg played real well, especially late in the fourth quarter last Friday against Athens. Levi Yoder, did the work in the beginning, finished with 21 points, and then Isaiah Valentine had his own personal 9-0 run to start the fourth quarter, and that's where Mifflinburg really took control of the game. And it's going to be interesting. Danville Mifflinburg's been, I think it was 26 or 27 points and 39 points this season.
Wow.
So, Danville's probably the heavy favorite, and it's.
But what happened in the district playoffs last year?
Well, that was my next is, they were the heavy favorites last year, and Mifflinburg Mifflinburg pulled off the upset. It's going to be interesting. I don't know if this Mifflinburg team is good as last year's Mifflinburg team. Tanner Stoltzfus was a pretty creative scorer for them last year. I don't know if they have that third scorer. Austin Raymer. Austin Raymer's usually their third scorer, but that's a tough matchup inside for him. Dyson Harward tonight, so that's probably going to be the place to work if he can control Dyson on the glass and do a little scoring himself. Mifflinburg should make this much more interesting those first two games.
And the winner will get Shamokin, which may be a little bit of a surprise, beating Montoursville on Tuesday night.
Well, they did beat him at home, second to last game of the regular season, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. That's a tough matchup for Montoursville because Shamokin wants to defend you all over the court, and I don't think Montoursville is quite as athletic as Shamokin. And, I was really hoping that 58-57 game a couple weeks ago that Shamokin and Danville would both be in the final. So that should be a fun one. And Mifflinburg and Shamokin played two real good basketball games this year. I think Shamokin won one in overtime, and Mifflinburg won the second contest over at Mifflinburg. So that would be a fun matchup as well. This Shamokin team, started the season shooting the basketball real well and was really relying on its offense. But they've totally kind of transformed themselves, and they're playing full court man-to-man defense, and they want you to try and beat them off the dribble. And there's nobody's really been able to do it. They've really started to lock teams down and playing a lot of that Lewisburg game I saw them play last week was combined for 70-some points. And in the Montoursville game last night certainly wasn't high scoring either.
Yeah. Class A, Lourdes is in the final. We've got St. John Newman Thursday night. So tonight, hopefully, if you're watching this Thursday morning. Tonight, what do you expect in that matchup?
That's. I think Lourdes is probably the favorite. Thomas Schultz is still the best player on the court between the two teams, but don't count out. Of course, it slipped my mind when we're actually talking about him. But the sophomore guard, David Hill, I think his name is, from St. John Newman, is real good. And Jaden Coffey is a name that people probably know around here. He's a wide receiver for Loyalsock, but he's their inside player, and he has enough size and length to give Thomas some problems and make Thomas Schultz work on offense. It's an interesting matchup. If Lourdes shoots well, Lourdes is tough to beat. Ty Cumbera and Adam Sandry both can get hot and have knock down 5-6 threes, and that really opens things up for Thomas inside. And he did a real good job last week of letting the game kind of come to him when Sullivan County was really focusing on him, and had a couple assists, a couple steals before he was kind of able to shake free and then end up. He's gotten so consistent that it's almost a quiet 20. You look down and he has a quiet 23 points.
Sure. Also in District 3, Greenwood lost in the district semifinals, but they're still alive. They'll play in the third place game.
I think they just ran into Lancaster Country Day was a Tri-Valley League team. It was in the thick of was a fairly young team last year and in the thick of the Tri-Valley League race, and went to a conference a little closer to, I think they went back to the Lancaster Lebanon League. And, they played real well against Greenwood. And, if somebody locks down on Greenwood shooters, Greenwood doesn't have the big kid inside right now that's going to, hurt you. So, it's kind of caused them some problems against Lancaster Country Day. And it's going to be, that's going to be a matchup thing. I think if they end up losing this game, if Lourdes wins the first round, we end up with the Lourdes Greenwood game.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
Which would be interesting. I think Thomas is not a good matchup for them, but
No.
the guard plays between the two teams would be fun.
I'm going to use Greenwood as a transition over to girls basketball. Greenwood
Almost like professional, like.
Hey, I have done this for the last, 20 weeks between different sports, 25 weeks. Greenwood girls on Tuesday night beat Veritas Academy 55-19 in the District 3 Class A semifinals. Greenwood had 2 girls score more than 20. It was 9-8 after the first quarter, and then Greenwood's defense really clamped down. So Thursday, 4:30 at the Giant Center, they're playing for the district championship. So if you're in that area, if you're one of our Millerstown, Liverpool viewers, head down to the Giant Center, see if Greenwood can win that District 3 title. They're in states regardless of that. Heading over to District 4, same kind of situation in boys where we had some semifinals Tuesday night and then some finals are Wednesday night. So we've got a lot of half of district finals set for the bigger classes here.
Mifflinburg versus in girls.
Yes, Danville or Jersey Shore, who Todd's going to cover Wednesday night. So make sure to read that in Thursday's Daily Item. For the championship, the loser that gets Shamokin to play for the third place game. We had Josh Funk at that game Tuesday night. I went over and took some pictures. It was fun. It's a fun game. Mifflinburg got some distance in the second half. Shamokin made a run, but wasn't able to get within 2 or 3 possessions. But early on, it was 14-10 in the second quarter. Shamokin was having full court pressure, giving Mifflinburg some problems, but they were able to just pound it inside, hit some threes, kind of pull away.
Well, Shamokin's kind of struggling offensively without Lydia Deptula. I saw the game. The quarterfinal game with Montoursville where they were 0 of 19 to start the second half and didn't lose the lead, which kind of shows you how the game went. But, they play tough defense. They're real physical. They're able to go fairly deep and attack teams like that. And, Riley Griffith and Reagan Griffith are so good, in the backcourt. And, Mifflinburg has an underrated set of the athletes behind them. I mean, Libby Whitaker's a real good big girl who's going to North Carolina State to play softball. Angela Raymer is a real good athlete who provides some defensive help and scoring help. And, I think most people expected a Mifflinburg-Danville girls final again in Class 4A, and they've met 3 times already, and they've all been close and all been fun. So why not a 4th time? Tonight Danville's just going to have to, Danville has to do a good job on controlling Hannah Kaufman and not letting her get loose, and just play their game, not get lost under the lights and be nervous for a district semifinal. But I think they'll be okay. This team has played well all year. I don't see any reason why tonight would be any different.
Class 3A, same situation. We had a third matchup between Warrior Run and Lewisburg Tuesday night. Scott was there. Another 6-point win for Warrior Run?
Yeah, that was a war.
Yes. Third time, Warrior Run got all 3, but could meet again. Who knows?
And, it's kind of the first time I got to see either team. I caught most of the second half last night of that game before my Mount Carmel game. Warrior Run, Warrior Run Sydney Hoffman is a tall guard for around here, and she really did a good job last night of bringing the ball up the court against Lewisburg's pressure. Taylor Coop did a good job at point guard. Lewisburg just couldn't make shots last night against that Warrior Run defense. They did Warrior. They got some looks, but Warrior Run collapsed on defense real well, and then Warrior Run got their lead. Their inside girl, I think Scott Dadinsky said she was a freshman. The McKee girl did a real good job of shaking herself loose twice in the post. Plus, they set some screens and got some real open looks. Now, the downside for that is they probably should have been up a little more in the fourth quarter because they missed some shots. But we're able to ice a game from the foul line. And, this was the first time since 1995 that they've made a district final for the Defenders. So that's going to be a tough matchup for them probably. It'll be the first time they faced the Loyal Sock girls who are real tough. Expecting them to beat EJ tonight. But it'd be a nice upset for the Tigers. The Tigers have quietly put together a real strong season, and if they can shoot well against Loyal Sock, they should give themselves a real good opportunity.
Yeah, in 3A this year, EJ's 2 years removed from a District 4 2A title and state berth. Winner will play Warrior Run, loser will play Lewisburg. The winner that gets into states. 2A, we got Mount Carmel and Sayre in the final on Thursday night, and then Southern Columbia plays Muncie on Friday night for the third place game. For some reason, I was thinking, is Southern Columbia the name of that high school? I don't know why. But I would...
Because we never talked about them during football.
No. I was like, South Columbia. That's got to be it. I think I like the two Valley teams we cover, Mount Carmel on Thursday and Southern Columbia on Friday in those games. For no reason other than I've seen both of them and they're good. I don't know much about their opponents at all.
I think it's going to be tough, especially with Danny Ray Reno for Sarah to match up inside with Mount Carmel. She's playing real well. I also want to get a shout out that I want to start calling her the Shack of the Hack.
The Shack of the Hack?
That Shack of the Hack.
Okay.
And then, I really think a lot of people thought that Mount Carmel Southern semifinal on Friday night was a de facto championship game. And, Southern has not shot well in these district playoffs, and it caused them a chance in the championship game. It's going to be, Friday to almost a week off now to before this consolation game. It's going to be interesting to see how Coach Callahan and his team react and kind of bounce back from that loss. I think they're probably pretty disappointed. But I'm with you. I kind of expect Mount Carmel and Southern Columbia both make the state playoffs.
And then our District 4 Class A final is Lourdes against Sullivan County. And I've said all year around the office, I don't think there's a District 4 Class A school that can beat Lourdes in basketball. And I don't see any reason to change my mind heading into the final on Thursday night.
They played Sullivan County maybe the beginning of February and won by 10 or 12 points. Went through that lull, but have been playing...
At Sullivan County,
Sullivan County. And then they went through that lull at the end of the season where they got smoked by Jim Thorpe and then struggled offensively against Shamokin. But, since then they've played well. And, Sullivan County is playing well too. And this is a senior class that, has been... I don't know if it was the final or the semifinal last year that I saw them play Lourdes. That they got whacked around a little bit again. And I think they come in on with a little something to prove. So I think this might be a little closer, at least for a while, than people expect before Lourdes kind of pulls away late if they can shoot and kind of, take advantage of their size advantage inside.
I just think, Sullivan County was the higher seed, so higher than Benton, who Lourdes beat in the semis. But I just think, when your third or fourth option in Emma Shimko puts in 20-plus points and you run away with it against a team that's probably closer to Sullivan County. Benton's probably closer to Sullivan County than Benton is to Lourdes.
Yeah.
I just think that the Red Raiders are just a class
You mean
above.
skill-wise?
Yeah.
Because it's also closer. It's also closer distance-wise.
Geographically?
Yes.
Yes, I mean skill-wise.
Yes, I knew what you meant.
I couldn't find any of those schools on a map except for Lourdes Regional. All right, I think that's our look at high school basketball. Talking a little college. I think we ended last week with saying we're either going to be talking about Susquehanna getting ready for the D3 tournament or they're going to lose on the road Thursday night in the Landmark Conference semifinals.
It was B.
Yep, not going to the tournament. Still a good season, making it back to the Landmark Conference tournament with a pretty young team after a down year last year. Nothing to be disappointed about it. That's what I say.
Oh, and Tyler Hoagland's going to be tough to replace next year, but that young crew that came off the bench for Coach Marcinick this year is going to be a year older, and another recruiting class. I think they have to be excited going into next year. I mean, obviously Scranton's pretty young too, with Carl's son Jackson now up there, and some of those Abington Heights kids that they've been getting up there. So I think you have to worry about Scranton, but I got to think Coach Marcinick's pretty excited for the next couple of years, and I think there's probably more than one Landmark Conference playoff game in these kids' future.
Bucknell men were having some trouble. Dropped 2 in a row for the first time in a while when we talked last week. Good news since then is...
Well, you said they'd get well against Lafayette.
Yeah, they beat Lafayette. 1 point off the school record with 118 points. Set a school record for most made threes. And also Holy Cross, who Bucknell lost to on the road, upset Lehigh in Easton, Bethlehem. Where does Lehigh play?
Bethlehem.
In Bethlehem.
Stiebel Arena's in Bethlehem.
To put Bucknell back on top by themselves. So
It ended up working out, but
Yeah.
I bet that week of practice between the last loss and the Lafayette game was not fun with the way they came out and played. I'm sure they were just, that's not the way they've played at all the last 2 seasons, to come out and lose two games in a row. And they played real well, and I think that's, we've talked a couple times about hitting that lull and bouncing back from it, and I think they've done that. And now it's a matter of, you can't afford to lose any more of these games with such a tight Patriot League race.
Right.
And, you want that home, you want the final at home. And to get the final at home, you're probably going to have to win outright now to not let anybody have a chance to pass you.
Yeah. They either need to win out or have Colgate lose one more.
One more?
So, yes, the Bucknell would have to go 0-2, and Lehigh would have to go 2-0 for the Mountain Hawks to pass them, but if they finish tied with Colgate, it could go down to tiebreakers because they split.
Oh, is that going to be like the wrestling criteria?
I sure hope not.
It goes to 8 criteria.
If Bucknell beats Navy Wednesday night and then wins Sunday, they don't have to worry about it. So that's my suggestion.
Well, there you go.
On the women's side, the women also got upset. Lost on a 3-pointer at the buzzer. It was not a great shot. The video's out on Twitter. It went in, so Holy Cross, I'm sure, doesn't care what it looked like,
Yeah.
but not a pretty shot. Dropped to 13-2 in the conference.
Still control their own destiny because
Sure
they've already
do.
beaten American. So if they tie, that means if they beat American, that means they'll tie, and they've swept American. So that'll still give them the number 1 seed. But I'm sure Coach Roussel and the Bucknell women probably wanted that little cushion that they kind of
Yes.
gave up on that buzzer beater.
So Bucknell women home Wednesday night against Navy. Mike Bullock's going to be there covering, so you can read all about that Thursday. Saturday is the big one at American.
Oh, it is that American?
If you're one of our Washington, D.C. area viewers, I don't know where people are watching us from, head over, cheer on the Bison. A win there would probably give them first place in the conference tournament. They have one more game. Their regular season goes later than the men's do. They're home on Wednesday, March 6th, which I think is a week from today.
Yeah.
And then the men host a Patriot League quarterfinal on Thursday the 7th. Women's tournament play starts the 11th, and tickets are on sale. I just got an email from Bucknell about that earlier this afternoon. So
Hit the box office
yes.
quickly.
All right. I think that's all I got.
Alrighty.
Next week we'll have. When does state basketball start?
State basketball starts Friday, so we'll know the champions. We'll talk a little bit about the district finals.
And we can have a state preview.
We can do that too.
All right. We'll have state wrestling, state boys and girls basketball, and Patriot League tournament previews next week right here on our Winter Sports Podcast.
Alrighty.
Thanks for watching.
See ya.